All right. Well, thank you guys for all joining me. I know we're all busy in our own ways and on different coasts and time zones, but I really wanted to jump on and talk about immune balancing. I think there's been just a lot of information that's circulating that's been helpful, overwhelming, confusing. And obviously, this is a very kind of uncertain time with a lot up in the air and a lot of stress and anxiety about it. So I figured let's talk a little bit about it. I'll give you guys some information that I think will be really helpful for everyone to start thinking about supporting their immune system. And then I'll open it up at the end for some questions. So my goal is to kind of speak for about 45 minutes and then open it up at the end. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to, if you don't want to forget them, you can write them down. There's a little chat button that you can click on. I'm trying to find out if shared. It should either be at the top or the right-hand side. You may have to even click on more and then hit chat, and you can write in your questions. So after, I won't be able to see it quite yet while I have my full screen up, but afterwards I'll look through that and answer any of your questions that you have. I'll also add in there some links that would be important as I talk about them. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight. So first of all, probably most of you know who I am, but I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, what I do. I want to talk about the differences between immune balance versus immune stimulation. And I think that's where there's been a lot of confusion out there about what are the right tactics to help support your immune system. And it really depends on your current immune state, as well as what's going on right now in the different developments of the virus that's kind of going around. Obviously, this talk has been brought up because of coronavirus. I am going to be speaking very generally, though, just about immune support in general, because I think that's what we need to focus on. There's just so much we don't know about coronavirus in terms of treatment, prevention, and so forth. So we're going to talk more generally. That will still be really helpful information to help you guys feel empowered and get yourselves feeling healthy. Then we're going to talk about nature cure. So that's kind of the main topic tonight and how it relates to immune balancing. So we'll go over what nature cure is and the importance of nature cure, how to implement nature cure into your daily routines. I will have a few slides about symptoms of coronavirus, since I know that's, sorry, that's funny, symptoms look like for coronavirus, since I know that's kind of on everyone's mind. What to do if you start to feel sick, so just some very general things that you can start thinking about. And then I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about my 21-day Nature Cure Challenge. So again, I think one of the biggest things that I see as difficult for patients and my community is just how, in myself, to be honest, is we know all these good things to do to help keep our immune system strong. How do we implement them, and how do we keep up those routines? And I think that really for people, it's about accountability and community. And if we can do it together, it's easier to get these daily healthy habits in on a regular basis. So I'll tell you about that challenge that starts tomorrow. The other thing I wanted to mention, starting tomorrow, I have a few different kind of discounts and promotions, just because I know everyone's struggling out there and I really want to help in any way that I can. So for existing patients, if you want to schedule a follow-up, I'm going to charge $100 instead of $170. So it's a $70 savings. And that's going to be for the next 2 weeks. So if you schedule between now and April 8th, even if it's further out, that's fine. But if you schedule in the next 2 weeks, I will honor that. So $100 for follow-ups instead of $170. And for new patients, if you do want to see me, normally I have you come in as a new patient, and it's a $300 visit, and then follow-ups are $170. So I'm actually going to waive that $300 and just allow you to come in as a follow-up patient to talk about specific immune support for you. Okay, because I think it's really important to always remember we have to individualize these suggestions. So I'm going to talk a lot about different things that you could do, different things you can add into your diet and your routine. But please, 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 here's my little disclaimer. Always check with your doctor first, because really these things, even if they're somewhat benign, depending upon what your immune system is doing in your current health, it could maybe be good for you, and it maybe could, harm you in some way. So again, I want to just say, please reach out to your doctor before you implement any of the things that I talk about tonight. And also just check in with yourself. I mean, you know your health best. So make sure that you are thinking about things before you just add them in, and being smart about that. All right, so now you know what we're going to talk about. Oops, jumping ahead. So who am I? So again, I'm Dr. Emily Poccia. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I own a practice in La Jolla called Wildcraft Medicine, and I started this practice in 2018. When I originally came out of school, that was in 2014, I joined a practice that was primarily treating Lyme disease. So for about 3.5 years, I treated Lyme disease, which was really an amazing experience. These patients go through so much. Really, every single system of their body is affected, including mental, emotional, as well as all the physical aspects too. So I learned just so much from treating these patients, learning about gut health and hormone balancing, detoxification, learning about mental and emotional health as well, and of course about immune support. So this has been really helpful in allowing me to become the doctor that I am today. So I'm very grateful for all that I've learned from my patients and from treating Lyme disease. And I still do treat Lyme disease, but now my practice has a focus in preconception and fertility. I do a lot of digestive health, immune support, and just overall wellness. So kind of a mix of things. I also work as a clinical consultant for a supplement company called Biobotanical Research. So they are the ones that make Biocidin, when I was spraying in my mouth before. Amazing company. I train practitioners how to use the products, as well as speak at medical conferences about a lot of the research and protocols that they've put together. So that's been a great experience as well. And then on a personal note, I am a daughter, I'm a sister, fiance, getting married in August. Hopefully nothing gets shifted. Friend, boss lady, as you can see, my little boss lady tag. Have a big dog. I live in San Diego. Love living in San Diego, although my roots will always be East Coast, so that's where my family is right now. Healthy eater most of the time. I try to work out and be outdoors. So a lot of the things I'm talking about today are things that I do on a regular basis as well. And there's times I fall off and I have to remind myself to get back on. So I'm really excited about the 21-day challenge too, to do this alongside with you guys. All right, so let's get into it. So immune modulation or balance versus immune stimulation. So a lot of big words there, but we're going to break it down and try to make it as simple as possible. So when we're talking about the immune system typically has 3 major states, okay? Immune suppression, where the immune system is actually dampened or down-regulated, so there's a lower immune response. Think people who have chronic illnesses. A lot of times their body is so bogged down with treating this chronic ongoing infection, they actually don't get colds and flus very easily because their immune system doesn't have the extra resources to elicit an immune response for something acute. So that's a little bit about immune suppression. Immune stimulation is kind of the opposite side, and this is typically a heightened or overactive immune system. Now, again, we want suppression and stimulation kind of when needed. So you don't have to have even though I'm talking about chronic illness patients or autoimmune patients, everyday people that are healthy still have times when their immune system is suppressed and stimulated. And the immune system is constantly monitoring that. So with stimulation, think of people who have an acute infection, like a cold or flu, as well as people who have maybe an autoimmune disease, where their immune system is starting to now attack certain organs and tissues in the body, or at least create an immune inflammatory response to those things. And then, of course, what our kind of main topic is today is immune modulation or balance. Think about this as your everyday state. We want homeostasis. That's kind of always the goal when it comes to health, is how do we keep things in check and balance? So this kind of picture right here on the bottom right is a really simple graphic, but it kind of just shows you a little bit about what happens when there's a kind of an over response of the immune system and suppression. So with more of a immune stimulation, we're going to have cytokine storms. So this basically just means there's an increase in inflammation. Anytime you increase the immune system, you're going to see an increase in inflammation. With suppression, the opposite's happening. You're going to see typically decreased activity of the immune system. Sometimes there's low levels of inflammation, but there's nothing that's typically really heightened. But over time, you can see that there is some tissue destruction from this kind of low-grade ongoing inflammation. So again, our goal is to get to our immune systems to be as balanced as possible. So there's a time and a place for each. However, when the immune system operates in that balanced state, then it's ready to address things like stress and toxins and infections, which I know is kind of what everyone's mostly curious about. And welcome to all the new people that are joining. Just go ahead and make sure to mute yourself as you jump on so we don't distract anyone else. Perfect. Okay, so more on immune regulation. So I know I just kind of showed you a very simplified version of what immune regulation looks like, but I wanted you to understand it is way more complicated than that. And even these graphics are very, just tiny little pieces of what's going on. So, T cells. So let's talk a little about T cells, the top left-hand corner. T cells and T helper cells, they're part of something called our adaptive immune response. They're typically slower to respond. We have something called the innate immune response, which are a lot of our white blood cells that will respond pretty quickly to any foreign invaders. Over time, those white blood cells will then go and activate these T cells. And so they're responsible for a handful of different things. So they do help to regulate our immune system, but there's certain T cells that help to upregulate and some that downregulate. So Th1 in particular is known to kind of upregulate and cause more inflammation. So you'll see in this graphic here, it kind of talks about what things you'll see with Th1 dominance. So autoimmunity, inflammation. This is the cell-mediated immunity and inflammation pathways. With Th2, this is when our immune system is more making antibodies. Antibodies are how we identify foreign substances and infections and things like that, so that our immune system knows what to go after and what not to go after. So Th2 is more about making antibodies, helping support with extracellular parasites, and you'll see Th2 go up with things like asthma and allergies. So then, of course, our body is innately smart and has these T regulatory cells called Treg cells. And these cells are responsible for keeping everything in balance, right? So they help to support both the regulation between Th1 and Th2. So again, this is really simplified, but I wanted to bring this up because our goal is to help support these Treg cells. That's what we want. If we can support these Treg cells, then our body will know when to kind of increase the Th1 and decrease it, and as well as the Th2. There's other cells, obviously, like Th17 is also very important in a lot of these different pathways, but we're not going to get into all of that. And then down here, you'll see kind of another picture showing similar things, but the main reason I wanted to put this picture on was with the macrophage signaling regulatory, you'll see these different arrows up and down. And even if you don't know what those are, I just wanted you to understand that the immune system has a very specific way of reacting. Okay, so even simple things that we may do to help support our immune systems, like taking vitamin C, will influence what cytokines and messengers our cells release. Okay, so what we take and what we do in our body really does make a big difference in the immune system. So a little bit more. So one of the major byproducts, and I mentioned this before, of immune response is inflammation. Okay, this naturally happens. This alerts the body that there is something foreign and something needs to be done about it. Inflammation and histamine response. So with histamines, think like runny nose, watery eyes, kind of those allergy kind of symptoms. Look symptomatically like coughing, runny nose, watery eyes, sneezing, diarrhea, achy body, fevers, sweating. All of those things that sound really uncomfortable, like you get when you have a cold or flu, they're necessary mechanisms so that our body can get rid of the toxins, right? So anytime we're excreting through our eyes and our nose and diarrhea and sweating, it's just our body trying to get rid of toxins. So, the point of that is that inflammation can be really helpful. We don't always necessarily want to block inflammation. We don't always want to block these symptoms that are going on. Even though they're uncomfortable, it's our body's way of fighting off infection. Of course, over time, this ongoing inflammation can cause more damage than good. Right? So if we have constant inflammation, then we can start to see things like tissue damage, increase in heart rate and blood pressure, joint disease, even decreased elasticity of mucosal lining. So what that means is like the inside of our organs can get more rigid. And especially when it comes to things like the lungs. And I'm bringing this up because this is something that's been happening with coronavirus as you progress down the illness. you start to see fibrosis in the lungs. And this prevents the lungs from expanding and contracting appropriately, which is life-threatening. So there are times when inflammation, you want to dampen it, right? Because you don't want people to have issues where they can't breathe. So my point in going over all this is that the immune system and regulation is complicated. There are different times that you want your immune system to be upregulated, and other times you want to downregulate. And this may change from day to day or even hour to hour, right? When we get sick, you may start off with like some slow progressions, and then all of a sudden you've got a full-on fever and you're sweating profusely. And even though those symptoms can be helpful to get rid of those toxins, you also want to make sure that they don't go overboard. We don't want fevers to get too high. We don't want to lose too much water through sweating and diarrhea. So we do have to monitor those symptoms. Again, the example of kind of when things change from day to day and hour to hour is the beginning stage of coronavirus. You may want to slightly increase your immune system, get your immune system to be on alert. So that's like when you start to feel any kind of sore throat, or start to feel a little feverish, maybe a tiny little cough. But in the later stages, as that cough progresses and goes down deeper into the lungs, you may want to dampen or decrease your immune response to save your life. It's also not as simple as this, because it really depends on the person's current state of health before they got infected. So a generally healthy person getting coronavirus, that's why most of the time they've been okay. They're saying healthy people that don't have any comorbidities have been able to get past this and just really experiencing it like a cold or flu. However, someone who has some comorbidities like high blood pressure or diabetes, their immune system is already suppressed in a lot of ways. So they're starting off kind of on a lower operating system than someone who's generally healthy. So they may need more support. So that's really important to think about. There's also so much we don't know yet about supporting our immune system when it comes to the coronavirus. So again, just be really cautious about just jumping on any bandwagon of what people are saying, that this is, exactly what is needed to help treat it or prevent it. I think just take things with a grain of salt. Try to always relate it back to your current state and your current immune system. And really, I would say focusing on immune modulation is probably the safest way to keep yourself healthy and prevent you from having more risks for getting it. So that's kind of my points there. Okay, so now this brings us to the fun stuff. So which brings us to Nature Cure. So I'm really passionate about this principle, Nature Cure, and it's actually a very central principle in naturopathic medicine. So this refers to the body's innate ability to self-heal, given the appropriate necessities and environment. So I know it sounds really simple and basic, but this kind of stuff is profound. So having clean, fresh air and sunlight every day, having clean and abundant water, clean whole foods, adequate sleep, rest, movement and exercise, and circulation through hydrotherapy. So we're going to talk about all of these and how we can start to implement them into our daily routines. A little quote on the bottom, this is from Henry Lindlar. He's one of kind of the founding fathers of Nature Cure. So Nature Cure philosophy is the antithesis of all this. It recognizes that bacteria or their microzymes are particularly omnipresent, that we absorb them in food and drink and inhale them in the air we breathe, and that our bodies are alive with them. But that is not possible for us to be affected by disease, taints, and germs from without if our bodies are in clean, vigorous state. So really what this means, because I know there's a lot of kind of old language here, is that bacteria and infections and parasites, they're part of our everyday. In fact, we have 5 pounds of bacteria that live in our guts. So to look at health as, which the traditional model is the germ theory, right? And kind of that brings us to the next slide. The germ theory basically says there is an infection, treat the infection. Where the Nature Cure approach is, it's not really about the infection as much as it is about the person's vitality. How can we strengthen the person's ability to heal? And if you do that, then no matter what infection they come into contact with, the body is able to heal and get rid of it. Okay, so that's kind of the difference in thought process. And there's not one that's right or wrong. What I think is helpful is to know when to use each principle and kind of have that beautiful bridge between them. So how does Nature Cure work? It invigorates the system. It builds the blood and the lymph. It purifies the tissue. It increases circulation. So nothing in here is about necessarily killing off infection. And definitely there's a time and a place for that. But really the core of Nature Cure is about just enhancing your vitality. These principles have been around for eons to help support fighting infections, reducing physical pain, things like anything from injuries to arthritis. They've even been used to reverse disease like diabetes and cancer. So this is stuff even like food as medicine. This is kind of a very common term that we see now. And people can reverse disease states with just their diets. Okay, so it's not a totally kind of crazy woo-woo concept. It's a pretty basic concept that can really have a great effect. So another little quote that I loved at the bottom. So to seek to kill germs without purifying and invigorating the organism would be like trying to keep a house free from fungi and vermin by sprinkling it daily with carboxylic acid and other germ killers, instead of flooding it with fresh air and sunshine and washing it out thoroughly. The antiseptic would only add to the filth. So again, their really strong belief is let's help make people feel stronger and make their immune system strong, and they'll be able to address whatever they come in contact with. All right, so how do we start using these principles of Nature Cure in our everyday? And again, I did really try to make these specific for what's going on right now, so to give you guys some extra support. So gargling with warm water and salt. This is huge. First of all, the warm water is really helpful because it helps to keep the throat tissue moist. And again, as I was saying before, the throat is where we are seeing the first symptoms of coronavirus. So gargling with salt is really helpful because the salt actually helps to dry out the bacteria or any infections that may be in the mouth or the back of the throat. Himalayan sea salt and Celtic salt are my favorite, but really any sea salt will do. And you typically want to do it once or twice a day. Now, I'm not saying to do this every day all the time, but right now when there's that kind of heightened, issues with coronavirus, this may be a good thing to do, especially if you're being exposed, going to the grocery store, or you have to run out and be around people at all. This would be a great thing to kind of put into your regular routine right now. And then drinking warm water. So I've been sipping on my warm water. Take a sip now. So again, it helps to keep the throat moist and flush infections from attaching to a dry throat. Ideally, you want to avoid cold drinks for multiple different reasons, but mainly because then our body has to use energy to warm it up once it gets into our stomachs. So try to drink warm water right now, or room temperature is the best. Sip on your favorite teas. So I love green tea. Green tea is high in antioxidants. It also has antimicrobial effects. It can help support gut health as well by actually helping to support the good flora in the gut. And it also does have some natural caffeine, so it will give you some energy. So that may be a great one to have in the beginning of the day, and then you can switch to more of an herbal tea at night, which are naturally decaffeinated. And again, if you don't have any teas that you like, just at least sip on some warm water. You can even add some lemon to that too. And then apple cider vinegar shots. So this is kind of a cool thing you can add in too. Typically just 1 or 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar to kind of a shot glass of water, 4 ounces. You can do this 2 or 3 times a day. A lot of my patients will do it before meals. It actually helps to increase digestive enzymes. But apple cider vinegar has also been shown to reduce inflammation, support blood sugar, metabolism, and fight off any kind of dysbiosis in the gut, meaning any overgrowth of yeast or bacteria that may be causing some digestive issues. You can even kind of swish it in your mouth a little bit first if you want to kind of help clean anything in the mouth. Okay, hydrotherapy. So I'd mentioned this before on my list, and I know it's probably not something you've heard of before, or maybe you have. This is one of my favorite therapies. And again, it seems really basic, but has absolutely profound effects. So hydrotherapy involves application of hot and cold water to influence circulation. And circulation is so important when it comes to Nature Cure because it's how we deliver oxygen to all of our cells and our tissues, as well as remove waste. It's how we deliver and circulate the immune system. So if there is an infection, we want the blood to be circulating regularly so that it can catch anything that shouldn't be there. And not just our bloodstream, but also our lymph. Our lymph is what helps to clean the blood. So this not only helps to move your blood, but also your lymph. So the theory with hydrotherapy is that you always want to start with warm or hot application first, and then switch to cold. So the warmer the hot helps to increase your core temperature, because we never want people to feel chilly. That can definitely be more harsh on the immune system. Temporary moments of feeling cold is not bad, but overall we want that core temperature to be appropriate. So it increases your core temperature. It also dilates your blood vessels, so it opens them up and allows for more blood flow. Again, this is going to help transport your nutrients as well as your white blood cells that fight off infections. And at the end, we want to end with cold, because cool or cold helps to reduce inflammation. It also prevents the blood from pooling. So think about it. If you only sat under hot water or go into a jacuzzi, right? After a while, your kind of fingers start to get kind of all puffy. And that's just because the blood stops moving because everything's opened. So when we kind of squeeze it back, we add some pressure to get that circulation moving again. So this is a really powerful tool when used appropriately. The alternating hot and cold will cause vasodilation and vasoconstriction, creating a pumping action to the blood vessels and accompanying lymphatics. The effect is delivering more nutrients to the cells, more waste coming away, and over time encouraging healthy cellular function and increasing cellular metabolism. In addition, studies have shown that this therapy will increase white blood cells, thus supporting and encouraging immune response. So this has actually been a therapy that's been used for a long time, since the 1800s, to treat arthritis, headaches, infections, and even tuberculosis. People used to actually just jump in back and forth from the cold stream to warm baths and back and forth. So that's kind of how they used to do it. There's different types of hydrotherapy. I won't go through all of those, but depending upon where you want to deliver the hot and cold, you can use different types of it. So if you have more of like an injury to the knee, you may want to just run, do hot and cold right over that local area. Whereas constitutional is more on the core, where most of or all of the vital organs are, besides the brain. And that's kind of why you do constitutional. And the hot and cold baths is more whole body, kind of jumping in. But for us, to keep it simple in our busy lives, a great way to do hydrotherapy is at the end of your showers. So I know this isn't everyone's favorite, but it's really effective. So basically, I'm guessing most of you are taking hot to warm showers. And if you're doing that, you can just, at the end, turn the water to cool or cold water for at least 20 to 30 seconds. Even better is to go back and forth 3 times. So again, always start with hot. And if you don't take hot showers, you may want to turn up the heat a little bit before you go to the cold. Make sure you're really warm, and then go to the cold. And if you really want to do it really well, go back and forth 3 times. I just always caution, because even though this sounds simple, when you're moving your blood like that, it can cause people to feel a little dizzy and faint if you don't have that vitality. So just go really slow. And by slow, I mean don't do super drastic temperature changes. Maybe start with warm and cool water, and then you can kind of change the temperature difference more drastically as you get used to it. You also always want to have a longer period in the hot temperature than the cold. That way your core temperature doesn't drop too much. The hydrotherapy is a very helpful tip and great way to keep your immune system working well. Okay, food is medicine. And I'm sure, again, most of you or a lot of you know this information, but I think it's just good reminders. I personally even don't always stick to a perfect diet, right? I try to do the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time I'm eating as well as I can. 20% I just enjoy myself. But times like this are very important to try to stick to a healthy diet as best you can, because diet has so much influence on inflammation in our immune system. So vegetables are so important for so many reasons. They're very high in bioflavonoids, in polyphenols, in all sorts of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and so forth, as well as fiber. So 5 to 9 servings of veggies a day is supposed to be our typical serving of vegetables. And I know that sounds high, so breaking it down, each serving is a half a cup. So you should be having about 2 to 5 cups a day. The other thing that I'll see a lot from my patients is they say, oh yeah, I eat a really healthy diet, but they say I eat the exact same things for lunch every single day. They eat the exact same thing for dinner every single day. Obviously, sometimes you're going to have leftovers. I'm not saying never eat the same thing twice, but variety is absolutely key. Rotating your food. This is really important. That way you're making sure to get all the different types of vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients from your food. And the diversity of your food directly will impact the diversity of your microbiome. The microbiome is all the good flora in your gut, the bacteria, the yeast, and all their genes that help to support things like your immune system, your hormones, your mood, your metabolism, your brain function. I mean, everything. 70 to 80% of our immune system is located in our gut. So you'll see a very common theme here that one of the best ways to help support immune modulation is through supporting your gut. Okay, so healthy gut, strong immune system. Healthy fats. Healthy fats are also very important. Things like avocados, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, fatty fish that are wild caught, raw nuts, things like that. These fats help to support the integrity of your cell membranes. Why is that important? Because we're made up of cells, right? And we want to make sure that nothing gets inside the cells that shouldn't, and that everything that's supposed to get inside gets in. And viruses and different infections can easily get inside the cells, and that's how they can affect us sometimes. So anyway, so healthy fats will help to support the membranes of your cells, but they also help reduce inflammation, they help support brain functioning, even your mood and metabolism. All right, continuing on, because food is so important. So warm foods, just like warm fluids, heating your food can actually be really helpful because a lot of the times it's easier to digest. In particular, I'm talking about vegetables. You also want to be careful about how you're warming them up. You know, if you need to use a microwave, I get it, but really try to think of things like lightly sauteing, lightly grilling, lightly boiling, lightly steaming. And I'm saying lightly because you don't want to overcook your food either. That oftentimes will deplete them of the nutrients that they have. So low and slow is always the rule of thumb. Think soups and stews. I think we can hear someone. I'm gonna mute my parents. So think about that. So soups, stews, stir fries, all those things would be great. You can lightly bake some food as well. Skip adding ice to your smoothies. If you love smoothies in the morning, it's how you get a lot of good nutrients, that's fine, but maybe don't add a bunch of ice to it. Make them more room temperature. Or maybe skip and have, if you're able to tolerate eggs, have eggs for breakfast or some gluten-free oats. Even soup, I've had soup for breakfast before, and it's great. Salads, people are like, well, what about my salads? I love my salads. I'm not trying to say that you cannot have any raw foods, but I would just try to increase your warm foods. So a good idea would be have your base of mixed greens and on top put some sauteed or cooked veggies on top. Removing processed sugar, this one's huge for all the time, but especially now. It's not only inflammatory, but infections feed off of sugar. So please, please, please try the best you can. I know it's really hard when we're home all day and there's a lot of stress. And one of the big things I've been hearing about is stress eating. And I'll be honest, I've been doing it myself. So one of the ways to do that is try not to bring those things into the house that have processed sugar in them. Because then you're gonna have, if you know it's there, you're gonna go to the pantry when you're feeling hungry or stressed and you're gonna eat it. So instead have some things like fruit, some good organic berries would be a great option. That would be a better option. Yes, fruit still has sugar, but it's natural sugar, it's not processed. So your body definitely metabolizes that better. And there's also a lot of great nutrients in fruit. If you do need to sweeten things, I would suggest using things like local raw honey instead. Maybe add a little bit to your oatmeal in the morning if you need to do that. I just don't overdo it. But I'd rather you add a little bit of raw honey to coffee or tea than to add sugar. The next one, I think most people are gonna maybe jump off the webinar, as I say, removing alcohol. So again, now is the time, if you're ever gonna take a break from alcohol, to do it. Alcohol is not only inflammatory, but it breaks down to sugar in the body. So look above, right? Everything that I said right here about sugar feeding infections, alcohol is going to break down into sugar in the body. It also can throw off blood sugar. It's obviously going to be more toxic on the liver. And the liver, we want the liver to be ready to break down toxins from our environment and from us fighting off infections, not having to break down alcohol. So highly suggest taking a little bit of a hiatus from alcohol, or at least cutting back. And then removal of food sensitivities. So food sensitivities are typically delayed reactions that people will sometimes get from certain foods. Not everyone has them, but they can trigger immune responses. Things like headaches, joint pain, upset stomach, brain fog, fatigue, rashes. So if you're having any of those things, you may want to think twice about what you're eating. And I'm not saying you have to take out all of these things, but I'm giving you kind of the most common foods that can cause food sensitivities. And I know they're kind of all really fun ones that we like to eat, but gluten, which is a protein found in a lot of grains, dairy, corn, eggs, soy, and nuts. So maybe start thinking about how you feel after you eat. And it can be hard to identify because sometimes these reactions don't happen for 3 days later and you've already re-eaten the same foods. So it can be difficult, but if you want to play around with that, start taking out some of these things. And sometimes people will know, like, you know what, if I'm being really honest with myself, when I have dairy, I get a little bit of acne, I get some bloating. So start to pay attention a little bit more and see if these things start to bother you. Think about taking them out temporarily, and I bet it'll help your energy and some of your symptoms. And then, of course, if you're not feeling like you're absorbing enough nutrients from your food, you can always add multivitamins in. This would be a good time to just have a good multivitamin. I like to get nutrients through our food as best as we can, but sometimes the multivitamins can be helpful for that. All right, movement as medicine. So we all know how important movement is. I won't bore you too much with that, but something that I do want to point out is not just about cardiovascular and blood flow and sweating, but also for our mental health. This is so important right now, especially with a lot of our gyms closing down, and we're working from home. Please, please, please find either time to go outside and go for walks. Right now, I think most of us are at least able to do that. That's a great time to spend some extra time with your dog or your families, go for some family walks. But there's lots of gyms and people putting on virtual workouts. My gym has been doing an amazing job of that. So the Movement Warehouse, which is also located in San Diego, they've been incredible. They've been offering 3 workouts a day and 1 time frame to do yoga. So check it out. There's plenty of people offering things like this online. You can also just do your own stretching. Take some time in the middle of your day to just stop and kind of stretch your neck, move it around, stand up, touch your toes. This is going to help prevent burnout. It's also going to help our blood circulate. Sitting is the new smoking, unfortunately. This is a huge lifestyle that we're seeing that's really impairing our health. So please try to stand up once in a while and move around. And then there's just the differences between movement and exercise. Movement should be every day, right? I mean, go for a walk, rollerblades, surfing, whatever it is that you like to do, just dancing in your house if you want. But you should be getting some actual good exercise in as well. So anything from HIIT workouts, which is high intensity interval training, weightlifting. Again, if you aren't able to go to the gym, get creative. Lift your detergents and put your feet up on the coffee table and do some dips or whatever. So get creative. You can go for runs still. You can go bike riding. Again, I saw one of our local bar studios is doing all bar workouts online. Basically, what you're trying to do with the exercise is get to somewhere between 60 to 80% of your max heart rate, about 3 to 5 times a week, for a period of 30 to 60 minutes intervals. Obviously definitely check in with your doctor first to make sure those are all appropriate. And if you don't know exactly what your max heart rate is, that's okay. Just get yourself breathing, get yourself sweating. That's really important. And make sure that you're doing that for a 30 to 60 minute interval. Okay, so now for some of the good stuff. And I know a lot of you maybe wanted to get this information and don't necessarily know what's appropriate. So here are some immune modulating nutrients. Okay, this means that these are nutrients that help to balance our immune system. Now, everything has its actions and potentially can change depending upon the dosing that you're using. So again, I want to stress that these dosings are not necessarily the best dosing for you, so please check in with your doctor. But I wanted to give some just general information. So vitamin A is a very potent antioxidant, helps to maintain the integrity of all those mucosal surfaces, which is a lot of times where that first detection of infections come from. And somewhere between about 12,500 IUs, it's a higher-ish dose, but you actually can go way higher if you're having an actual acute immune response. So if you have like a cold or a flu, you can actually go higher. But that could be something that you add in to help modulate your immune system. Vitamin D3, this one is probably my favorite. Vitamin D is actually more of a hormone than a vitamin. It is a precursor to hormones. It's called a prohormone. It supports our body's ability to make hormones. It also helps support our mood, our immune system. It stimulates immature, those like T cells into specific T cells. So somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 IUs a day is typically where you want to be dosing, or at least to correct your serum levels. If you've gotten blood work done recently, somewhere between 60 and 80 is a good place to be for vitamin D3. And you'd be surprised, even in a place like sunny San Diego, a lot of people are deficient in D3. So this could be something good to add in as a supplement. Glutathione is probably the most potent antioxidant that we know of. It's made up of 3 different amino acids. It not only helps support detoxification from our liver, but also intracellularly. So it helps our cells detoxify, which is very important. If you're not using glutathione, you can also use things that enhance glutathione, things like NAC, N-acetylcysteine, milk thistle, and alpha-lipoic acid. Those are things that will help boost your glutathione. Sometimes people don't do well with glutathione because it does have a sulfur base. So think about people who, if you drink wine and get headaches, that could be a sign that sulfur, your body has a hard time breaking down sulfur. So if that's the case, you may not want to add glutathione in. Again, check with your doctor. But it does very much so help support the detox pathways. Dosage really does vary. If you're taking oral glutathione, then you want to try to get liposomal versions, just meaning it's emulsified in a fat, so it's easier to absorb. But really the best way to get glutathione inside the body is either through IVs or intramuscular, or pushes, we call them. Obviously, it's hard to do right now unless you have a local place that's open and offers these things. Otherwise, the liposomal version is pretty good. L-glutamine is also an amino acid. This helps to repair the tight junctions in the gut. So the gut lining looks like this. And when there's inflammation, it starts to spread out and we have these kind of holes. And this is where food particles can start to escape that are not fully broken down. And it creates an immune response in the body. So we really want to make sure, again, that the gut is as healthy as possible. So the glutamine helps to repair those gut lining. It also helps to repair muscles in general and fuels cells of the immune system. So either 5 milligrams or 5 grams is actually the same amount, but I just wrote it both ways. Some people get confused. 5,000 milligrams is equivalent to 5 milligrams, and you want to take that daily. You can take it in divided doses if you want. And then probiotics. Probiotics are extremely helpful, obviously, for bringing in good flora to the gut, supporting that diversity, make sure that we don't have an overgrowth of specific yeast or bacteria. It's also been researched and shown that probiotics have increased something called natural killer cells in elderly populations. So natural killer cells help us fight infections. So there's different types of probiotics. There's tons out there. Again, talk to your doctor about which one's the best one for you. But there are some that are refrigerated. And if you do get that version, you want a high dose because those ones don't live as well. They're much more sensitive to things like stomach acid and temperature change. So you want a high dose, somewhere between 25 and 100 billion CFUs. That CFUs is colony units, colony forming units. And the spore-based ones, which are now my favorite recently, they come from the soil. They're more resilient. You can use just 3 to 4 billion spore forming units, and that typically is plenty. Okay, then we have immune modulating herbs. So these herbs help to balance the immune system through a few different systems. So there's some that are called adaptogens. These help your body adapt. Think of it like that. They help support the adrenals, which are the glands that make cortisol, which is our stress. This person? Okay. We also want to add antioxidants, herbs that are high in antioxidants. Antioxidants are known for balancing immune response. They also quench free radicals. Free radicals are something that will damage cells over time through oxidative stress. So antioxidants are important. We want to enhance that barrier integrity. So again, that's about enhancing those tight junctions of the gut. Some of the herbs will prime innate immunity. So they actually help your immune system have immune memory to infections of the past. That way you don't keep getting infected with the same thing. And we also want to support detoxification, making sure when your body is fighting things off that we clear out the toxins so that the body doesn't become burdened with that. Okay, so here's my list of some of my favorite immune modulators that are botanicals. And some you may recognize. So ginger is a great anti-inflammatory. It supports circulation and digestion, so great for things like nausea. It's also a very warming herb. So this could be a great one to sip on as a tea. Just different considerations here, both good and bad. I kind of wrote some things to think about. It's a very warming herb. So if you're already someone that is really hot and sweats a lot, it may not be the best herb for you. This is better for people that have cold constitution. So maybe they don't have great circulation. They have cold hands, cold feet. They may have slow digestion. This would be helpful for them. Echinacea, I think I spelled that wrong, sorry. Echinacea has been shown to be effective both as a prophylactic in reducing duration of a common cold, prophylactic preventing cold and reducing duration. It also has been shown to be antiviral. So something to mention here is that, I obviously know we all want to protect ourselves against this virus, but it's really important to know when to use antivirals and when to wait. We want those antiviral herbs, medications, whatever you're using, to really be effective when we need them. So if we use them too early in the game, our bodies kind of get used to them over time. Or the infections, if there is a low-lying infection, they learn how to adapt. So I would just be cautious and not use antivirals unless you really, really need to, or again, unless you are someone that's being exposed a lot. If you are a healthcare worker and you want to keep yourself strong, those may be better times to use it. Now, echinacea you can use kind of just at more like lower dosing, just to keep supporting the immune modulation. Something to note when if you do get a cold or flu, when you're using it, it actually can make people feel more tired and increase their symptoms initially, because it actually upregulates the cytokines, which is the inflammation, and those are responsible for some of those cold and flu symptoms. So it may increase your discomfort temporarily, but it will actually shorten the amount of time that you have the flu or a cold. So that's kind of a cool little thing. Mushrooms like maitake, reishi, cordyceps, turkey tail. These are really amazing modulators, okay? So mushrooms work well in the body because they help modulate cytokines, that inflammation. Those who suffer from mold, however, may want to be cautious about adding in a bunch of mushrooms because they are known to have contamination with mold spores. Just think about that. Quercetin is a natural antihistamine. It also is anti-inflammatory and helps to heal the tight junctions of the gut. So again, as we were talking about, histamines are what make people have allergic type symptoms. So runny nose, hay fever kind of symptoms. It comes from the skin of apples and onions, so you can eat more of those foods, but really if you want to use it in a therapeutic way, you have to take it internally. Eleutherococcus or Siberian ginseng is a really excellent adaptogen. So it helps to support our body against stress. It can be used as prevention and treatment of colds. And it is even shown to help increase athletic performance and support mental clarity. So that's a really helpful one. It does kind of help support energy too. It's not super stimulating, but it will definitely help kind of balance everything out in terms of energy. And then the last one here is licorice. This is also an adaptogenic herb. In Chinese medicine, it's known as the great synergizer. Synergizer, yeah. It helps to bring everything together. When you use it with other herbs, it really just helps to increase the effect. It also does have some antiviral properties. It helps to reduce the breakdown of cortisol. So if people actually have low cortisol, this can be helpful to help cortisol kind of stay in the system longer. Sometimes we need a little bit more cortisol if we're really fatigued. Cautions here, if you have high blood pressure, it can increase your blood pressure. It also is a weak estrogenic herb, so it does have a little bit of hormonal influence. So again, this is just why it's important to really know your body and to understand what these herbs and nutrients do, because they have multiple effects. All right, detox support. So we talked about some of these already, so I'll skip through them because I want to make sure I respect your guys' time and we're getting close. So glutathione we talked about. NAC is a precursor to glutathione, but I also really like NAC, N-acetylcysteine, because it can break up mucus. So again, if you're feeling congested, that may be a good thing to add in. Milk thistle is one of my favorite herbs. This is a great hepatoprotective, so it protects the liver. It can help support increasing glutathione levels. It actually has been shown to help the liver regenerate itself, which is absolutely amazing, and works on something called phase 2 detoxification. But even simply just lemon in your water. This is a great way to help flush out toxins and help support alkalizing the body and reducing inflammation. Epsom salt baths are both relaxing and also help with detox. So Epsom salt is made from magnesium sulfate. Again, that sulfur component is something that's very helpful for detoxification. Saunas. If you have access to a sauna, this would be a great time to start using them. It not only helps you sweat out toxins, but it also helps with circulation. And in particular, I'm talking about full spectrum infrared saunas. So the saunas at the gym are great. They'll help you sweat and they open up the pores kind of on the surface. But infrared saunas actually penetrate deeper in the body and help more on cellular levels. They help cells detoxify. And then finally, dry skin brushing. This is a really easy thing you can do at home before showering. So you always want to do it on dry skin. And you basically take a dry brush, or you can take a washcloth. That's kind of what I suggest patients do, is wet the washcloth the night before and then let it dry so it gets kind of crinkly. And you can use that as a way to stimulate. And you basically just sweep your whole body always towards the heart. If you guys want more information on that, I have a whole handout. But that's a great way to help support that movement of your lymph that helps to clean your blood as well as your circulation. Sleep and rest. Again, I think we probably know how important this is, but it's important to mention it again. 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. Please, please, please. I know we're all busy and we're trying to adjust our lives, but this is key. Our immune systems regenerate itself and are on high alert at night. So it's really important to make sure that you're getting restful sleep. Ideally, the hours before midnight are more helpful for our health than after midnight. So even if you're going to bed at like midnight or 1 and you're waking up at 9 or 10 and you're getting your 8 hours, that's good, but it's even better if you can shift it back and maybe go to bed at 10 and get those 2 hours before midnight. Sleep hygiene is key. So making sure that you're going to bed around the same time, but also waking up around the same time each day within about an hour is really helpful for just getting that circadian rhythm and getting your body used to when you're going to go to bed and when you're going to wake up. Also turning down the lights, not only on the ceiling, but in front of us, right? So our phones, our laptops, our TVs, if we can just kind of start dimming those lights down, that can make a big difference. And then also just avoiding a lot of stimulation at night. I know it's been hard with the news having so much information out there. Maybe watch it earlier in the day so you're not thinking about it right when you go to lay down at bedtime. And just create a bedtime routine for yourself. So your body learns that, hey, it's time to start settling down. It's time to go to bed. Epsom salt baths and nice herbal teas, stretching, all really helpful. And then rest is just as important as sleep. So rest is, taking time in the middle of the day to allow yourself to just take a breath and breathe. I will be honest, I did not do this enough today. I was trying to finish preparing for this, but this is really, really important. Put a timer on your phone every hour or so. Give yourself 5-10 minutes. Do your looking around, your stretching, your breathing. This will help to prevent burnout. This helps support your mental health, which is so key right now. And it just allows you to have some you time. I'd also even suggest, give yourself maybe an hour each day to just sit with your dog or your family or go for your walk, where you just have time to just reflect. And mental health, again, is very important right now. I know a lot of us are feeling very anxious about all the unknowns and the financial stress. It's a lot. So take breaks, really important. Meditating or prayer or whatever feels right for you, but try to be consistent about it. Get your 5-10 minutes in. Maybe start your day that way or end your day that way. There's plenty of apps out there like Headspace and Calm and handfuls of others that can help you stay consistent. Journaling is really helpful. Going outdoors, getting some fresh air and sunlight, that's so big when it comes to nature cure. Practicing gratitude. I know that there's, again, just so much going on right now, but if we can start focusing on what we're grateful for and lucky to have in our lives, that can kind of help bring up some positivity. Breathing techniques. This is very helpful, not only to calm you down, but also to support digestion. So you can practice this maybe before you eat. You take 3 deep belly breaths. Calm your system down. You'll actually absorb the nutrients better. Community is so key. It's been harder to get community these days, but virtually we're very lucky to live in this, in this time where we have the ability to Skype and FaceTime and Google Hangouts and have challenges where we do them from home, but we do them together. And then, of course, there are some nutrients that can help with supporting mood. And this would be, again, more things to talk to your doctor about. But vitamin D is very helpful for mood, just supporting your overall gut. And there are some things like SAMe and healthy fats and even some herbs that can help boost your mood. So if you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out. Okay, so a few slides left. I'm almost done before I open it up for questions. I just wanted to put this on there. You guys may have seen this already, but I think it's just important for us to be aware of symptoms to look for when it comes to coronavirus. So first, it affects the throat. Typically will last about 3 to 4 days, and then can blend into the nasal fluid and enter the trachea, and eventually into the lungs and cause pneumonia. So this takes about 5 to 6 days. You may start to see high fever, difficulty breathing. Obviously, if any of these things are going on, please reach out. You know, in the beginning stages, you could reach out to someone like me just to kind of get some tips or whatever. But if it's starting to get worse and affecting your lungs at all, you need to be seen. The nasal congestion is different than typical nasal congestion. It will make you feel like you're drowning. And it is very important to get immediate attention. And then just something at the bottom here that I thought was helpful. Everyone should ensure mouth and throat are moist, never dry. Take a few sips of water every 15 minutes at least. Why? Even if the virus gets into the mouth, drinking water or other fluids will wash them down through your throat and into your stomach. Once there, your stomach acid will kill all the virus. If you don't drink enough water more regularly, the virus can enter the windpipe and into the lungs. So if you weren't drinking enough water before, now is even a better time to start increasing your water and to do it on a regular basis. Okay, what to do if you start to feel sick? So again, this is really more in the beginning stages. This is where potentially increasing those herbs that are immune modulating and adding in antiviral support is a good time to do that. And again, I would still always check with your doctor, but I just want to at least list some things that you could do. So vitamin C is definitely immune supportive, and it can be immune stimulating, especially at higher doses. Vitamin D, you could just increase that. The vitamin A is a higher dose, even adding zinc. And here are a handful of herbs that I really like that are antivirals. Again, we have no idea if these antivirals are going to be effective against coronavirus. So I want to be very clear about that. Yes, they're antiviral, they have some antiviral activities, but there's just not enough research out there right now to say if they're going to be effective against corona. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing these things and you're not getting better or the symptoms start to move into cough or lungs, please seek help immediately. All right, and then a little bit about our challenge. So if you haven't already heard about this, I've been putting together this challenge for us, all the things I talked about. One thing I want to mention is I hope you don't feel more stressed about all the things you feel like you have to do. You don't have to do all these things every day. You don't have to implement everything that I said. These are just things to get you to start thinking and to give you tools to implement. But one way that we can start to work on this together is through this challenge. So basically it takes 21 days, and each day you'll get a new challenge, like drinking your half your body weight in ounces of water per day. And that's what actually our challenge starts with tomorrow. And then the next day you'll get a new challenge, and they all build upon themselves. So by the end of the 21 days, you should have 21 new healthy habits that you've implemented into your daily routine. So I thought it was a really fun way for both you and I to get back on track and feel like we're taking some initiative to support our immune systems. So if you want to join, it's free and open to anyone. This is the link. I will add it to the notes here in a second. It should be really fun. And I also am going to have people, if they comment about the different tasks that they're doing, if they stay involved, then I'm going to give different percentages off to come see me. So just another little initiative to get involved. All right, so more about Wildcraft Medicine. If you are interested to chat more and not already a patient, you can look at our website, email me at info@wildcraftmedicine.com. I often post on Instagram, so that's a great way to know about all of our talks and events. We are doing this challenge through Facebook, so if you have a Facebook, you can do it there. I will also try to post on my story the challenge each day, so you guys can look there. We also always offer free 15-minute consults. So if you're not really sure, you just want to ask specific questions about what you have going on, please go ahead and schedule that. And we are offering virtual consults right now. So most of the time we have in person, but we do virtual consults all the time. And right now, just doing virtual consults. And again, for current patients, we are offering follow-ups at a discounted price of $100 instead of $170. And if you're a new patient, and you just want to really get some information about what immune support you could get on board for yourself, we're going to waive the initial consult and just have you come in as a follow-up for $170, which is our normal price. But that is about a $300 savings, so pretty good deal. All right, let's open it up. I know I took a little bit more time than I said I was, and if any of you have to go, please feel free to do that. If you guys have questions, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves. I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. And I will try to answer them as best I can. Let me see on the chat if there's any questions. If you guys want to type them in too, if you don't feel like talking, you can always add your question to the chat. Anyone have any questions?
Mhm.
Mary, do you have a question? No worries if you guys don't have questions. That means I just did such a good job educating you.
Dr. Poccia, this is Taylor Scott. I was on mute, sorry.
No worries.
I have a question. So
Sure.
for those suffering with chronic illnesses that are more immune depressant, do you think staying on some kind of, you know, antiviral through the course of this is a good idea, even though your body can become used to it during these heightened times? Do you think that would be helpful?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the question was basically, if you are already immune compromised, is it a good idea to be on antivirals now? And I still think it's kind of an individualized person by person answer, but generally I would say yes, it probably would be helpful to have some underlying low amounts of antivirals. So that way you're kind of doing like a maintenance dose versus a really high therapeutic dose. Does that make sense? That way, if for some reason with taking those you still get exposed, you can high dose those herbs or those nutrients and it will still be effective. So there's differences between dosing. So I would say maintenance dose of antivirals and nutrients would be a good thing because your immune system is already deficient. So we want to get you back up to that like balanced state as best as we can. And if that means taking some antivirals, especially, I mean, we have to remember there's way more circulating than just the coronavirus. People are still going to get cold and flus. People still have Lyme disease and still have issues with their gut. So if you have those issues, it doesn't mean stop treating those. You still want to treat those. And you don't want to stop the medications and the protocols that you're doing already, especially if it's prescribed from your doctor. But if you're concerned, if you're on the spectrum where you're more at risk, then you may want to get on some immune modulating support now. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Great. Okay, and then let's see. What do you think about colloidal silver? Colloidal silver can be a great supportive antimicrobial. So going after different infections and supporting the immune system. Again, I would use it in the same way. If you're using it already and you don't have symptoms, I would use it more as a maintenance dose. Okay, so low dosing. Maybe you're just dosing once a day. Maybe you're dosing half the typical dosing. Because when you have an infection, you want it to work and you want it to work fast. So hopefully that answers your question because colloidal silver can be very helpful. The other thing you can do with colloidal silver, they have nasal sprays of colloidal silver. You can nebulize it. So get creative too about how you can use these things and always ask your doctor if you're not sure. But that's what I'd say about colloidal silver. We had another question about B vitamins. Yes, B vitamins are, again, I should have mentioned too. The things on my slides are not the only things that you can do. There's plenty of other things. This would have been, a whole 4-year course if I put everything that can help support your immune system. But B vitamins are very helpful for supporting energy, for supporting detoxification, even immune response as well. If you are going to use B vitamins, I highly recommend using the form of B vitamins that are more active and easy to absorb. So that tends to be the methyl form, the hydroxy form, and the adenyl form. So again, some of those forms may be appropriate for you. Maybe they may not be if you have certain genetic mutations that don't allow you to keep up with detoxification. So again, talk to your doctor about that. But the methyl form for most people is probably the better form. Do you think essential oils can be helpful during these times? If so, how? So same thing, essential oils are very, very potent. They're about 70 times more potent than just an herb as a tea or a tincture. So I would use them cautiously. I think they can be very helpful if you have an infection and you need to treat it, but they also can wipe out some good flora. They're harder for the liver to break down. So I would use them more like in diffusers. I've been using some as like in my hand sanitizer. That's a good way to take them, but I know a lot of people are taking them internally, and I do suggest my patients to take them internally in the right time and place. I would probably, again, just if you are going to take them internally, like I know doTERRA and Young Living, they have a handful of immune supportive blends. Maybe don't take it every day. Take it every other day. Take it once a week. And if you feel symptoms, then you can increase it. It's a good question. Let's see. Someone came on a little later. That's fine. You have Lyme. Wondering what is good to boost adrenals. Okay, so Again, for adrenals, we want to use adaptogenic herbs. Things like eleutherococcus or Siberian ginseng is a great one. Licorice can be helpful. There are other ones like rhodiola, cordyceps also, even though it's a mushroom, that can also help support adrenals. So I would say maybe reach out to me specifically, whoever had that question, and I can even write back to you in a bit, but maybe shoot me an email. Again, I'll write my email on here. It's info@wildcraftmedicine.com. If anyone has more questions, oops, I wrote just to Cindy, so let me send that to everyone. info@wildcraftmedicine.com. Okay, let's see, more questions. Thank you guys all too for your patience and for listening. I appreciate that. Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation? Good question. I think what I'm gonna do is put together maybe like a handout of all the information that's a little bit more condensed. So stay tuned. And what I would say is email me if you're interested in the information, and I will get that to you guys. I was thinking about that as I was putting it together, so thank you for that question. What are your thoughts on LDN for patients with Lyme disease? So LDN stands for low dose naltrexone. It is a medication that is used in low doses to help immune regulate. So it can be very helpful in Lyme patients, especially Lyme patients that have overactive immune systems. It's not for everyone. It can be hard to implement. One of the big side effects are nightmares or trouble sleeping. Eventually, over time, it can help with sleep, but some people love it and some people hate it. So if you're going to use it, I would just start at a very low dose. I normally start people at like 1.5 milligrams, then go up to 3, and then 4.5. So find someone that knows how to prescribe it well and give you appropriate suggestions on that, but that can be a helpful medication. And I think that's everything from the chat so far. Does anyone else have any other questions? Thank you again so much for your time, and I hope to see you guys on the challenge. I think it will be honestly really easy and laid back, but I think a fun way for us all to start implementing these things together. So let's heal together. All right, everyone, have a great night. You're welcome. Take care, stay healthy, and stay safe. Take care. Bye.